All right, y'all, we're going to pick up right where we left off before. We were talking about how the Bibles after the KJV no longer have the word Easter and instead it has the word Passover. But let's talk about why that is the case. And the answer is kind of simple, if I'm being honest with you. It's because English and the world, the culture, has changed. In today's world, Easter can refer to Resurrection Sunday, or it can refer to secular cultural traditions of the world. So the eggs and the rabbits and the candy and whatever else people do on that Sunday. The word Passover, however, refers only to the Jewish feast. Now, remember what I said before in our last video. Easter itself, when utilized in older Bibles, was a catch-all term for all of these things: Resurrection Sunday, Passover, i.e., the Jewish feast, and anyone who was outside of Christian or Jewish customs, whatever they were practicing in the springtime. So Easter was used as a catch-all term, not exclusively a secular term. Just want to be clear on that. So modern translators returned to just using the word Passover because they felt it's just more appropriate because it's the literal Greek meaning of what's going on, what's from the Greek manuscript. They felt it avoids confusion and it keeps the text aligned with the biblical timeline. I'm just telling you what the translators thought. I'm not saying this factually because, if I'm being honest, I think all the switching things around adds a little bit more confusion than clarification. So this is not about changing the theology or the doctrine. It's just about clarity. If you're wondering why it's no longer in the Bible, it's literally just because they felt it would bring more clarity to change it. Now, you can tell me whether you feel like it brought more clarity or not, but it was included in other English translations of the Bible previously, so I'm not sure what's going on. I say English. Unfortunately, I wish I could tell you what it says in Spanish and German and Japanese and Chinese. I can't tell you that much. I'm just speaking about English Bibles and the largest versions of the Bible that are out there. So let's keep going. What is the difference between translation and transliteration? I'm not going to go too deep into this because there's so much confusion with various things all throughout the Bible with translation and transliteration. Translation is choosing an English word that carries the same meaning as, sorry, I had to cough, that carries the same meaning as the Hebrew or the Greek or the Aramaic. Transliteration is something that is carrying the sound of the original word into English. An example of transliteration would be like Jesus, transliterated into Jesus, something like that. Easter in Acts 12, verse 4, is a translation. It is not a transliteration. What is a translation again? Choosing an English word that carries the meaning. What's the meaning it's supposed to carry? Passover and Resurrection Sunday. So that's the meaning it's supposed to carry. I'm sorry. I was like, what? I lost my thought. So a transliteration of Pascha would be Pascha. A translation of Passover, or in older English, is Easter. Translation is of Passover was Easter. It's not. I'm not trying to argue about it. I'm just trying to tell you the facts. So let's get to the nitty gritty. Is Easter pagan? We need to have a deep understanding of syncretism. Syncretism. I'll probably put the word on the screen. So this is where all the confusion comes up. There are three separate things happening. The biblical event, which is the resurrection, which is 100% Christian, rooted in Scripture, tied to Passover, and celebrated by the early church as Pascha. Then we have the second thing that's happening, Easter, the English word Easter. Again, this word may have older associations with a spring month or festival in Anglo-Saxon culture, that does not make the resurrection itself pagan. It just means the word Easter is an English word with mixed history. Remember, it was used as a catch-all term because everybody was celebrating something in the springtime. Whether you were Christian, and Christian can be Jew or Gentile, whether you were somebody practicing Judaism or you were neither. Let's just make that clear. So we got the biblical event of the resurrection. We have the catch-all Easter, which we're just going to say we're going to say secular things were happening. And then we have, the cultural customs. Everybody doesn't necessarily do the eggs and the rabbits and the baskets and the fertility symbols. And all of those come from European spring traditions. None of that has anything to do with the Bible. None of that has anything to do with the Bible. When you mix biblical truth with non-biblical customs, that is called syncretism. That's when you blend two different religions or two different spiritual or cultural elements together. Syncretism. So yes, the modern cultural Easter that we all know, eggs and candy and ducks and rabbits, you see in all these fertility symbols, yes, this is a form of syncretism. But the resurrection celebration is not pagan. It's not pagan. I think a good example of this is the birth of Jesus is not pagan. I know a lot of people will try to say, well, Saturnalia and Sol Invictus or all this stuff. Listen, other people were doing stuff around that time, but that don't mean that has anything to do with Jesus. Other people may be doing stuff around the time of the resurrection, but that doesn't mean it has anything to do with the Bible, and that doesn't mean it has anything to do with Jesus or God the Father. Two things can be true at once, but that doesn't mean that there's overlap or some sort of contamination happening. So, is the term biblical? And then I'm going to close it out soon because I don't want to have to make 3 videos. Is the term Easter biblical? Yes, but the customs are not. The term Easter is biblical in the sense that early English Christians used it to translate Pascha. It appears in multiple historical English Bibles. It's not just in the King James. It appears in multiple very old original Bibles. And it was a part of Christian vocabulary for centuries. It didn't just come out of nowhere. Again, I'm just got to make sure we drill it in. But the cultural elements like the eggs, the rabbits, the fertility symbols, all of that stuff, none of that is biblical. Yes, it is rooted in pagan practices, secular practices. So, biblical event? Yes. Cultural add-ons? No. In summary, just to make sure we all on the same page, the Greek word in Acts 12 verse 4 is Pascha, meaning Passover. Early English Bibles translated it as Easter because that was the common English word for the season, not necessarily the event itself, but the season. Modern Bibles use Passover to match the Greek and to avoid any confusion with any sort of syncretism or secular ideology. The resurrection celebration is Christian and biblical. The word Easter has a mixed linguistic history. The cultural Easter elements are syncretism. You can't mix all of the other stuff with Christ and say, well, it's fine. God knows my heart. I'm telling you right now what it is. I'm not saying that makes you a horrible person or your church is horrible or whatever, anything like that. I'm just telling you the facts. And just like Christmas, just giving you another example of syncretism. The event is biblical. The celebration and the worship is biblical. But when we bring in the traditions and the culture of the world, that's when we have a problem. So is the word Easter biblical? Yes. Is the other stuff biblical? No. I hope that helps. Hope you learned something. Let's not fight about it. Let's not debate about it. I love you. I appreciate you. I'll talk to you later.